You know that feeling when an outfit just works? Like it's not just the clothes, but how they make you feel authentically you.
Yeah, totally. And for a lot of transgender men and transmasculine folks, getting that feeling can sometimes involve something specific called packing.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We're really going to unpack, no pun intended,
Nice one.
what packing is all about.
We'll be looking at what packers actually are, the different kinds you can find, and the reasons behind why someone might choose to use one. We're drawing on some great info from FOLX Health and their Basics today.
Right. So think of this as getting you up to speed on packers. Maybe you're curious, maybe you're considering it yourself, or perhaps you just want to understand this part of the trans experience better.
And a really key thing to get right away is that packing.
Mm,
It's super personal. The reasons vary hugely from person to person.
definitely. So maybe let's start with the basics. What is packing exactly?
Okay, so packing is basically using a prosthetic, which is called a packer, and placing it in your underwear, sort of in the crotch area.
And the goal is,
The goal is usually to create a bulge, to give the look and sometimes the feeling of having a penis.
gotcha. And who typically practices packing?
Well, it's most common among transgender men and non-binary people, also other gender variant individuals,
Mm.
basically people whose gender identity or expression differs from what society might expect based on the sex they were assigned at birth.
Okay. And you mentioned cisgender men sometimes.
Yeah, occasionally cis men might use some kind of padding for like a larger bulge, but the context and reasons are usually quite different. Packing is really strongly associated with the trans and gender variant communities.
Right. And the reasons why someone might pack, you said they're diverse.
Hugely diverse. For some, it's genuinely about safety, feeling less vulnerable in public spaces, maybe restrooms.
Mm.
For others, it's more about aesthetics, how clothes fit, achieving a certain silhouette. And then for many, it's really deep. It's about easing gender dysphoria, that intense discomfort when your body doesn't align with your gender identity.
And maybe even finding gender euphoria.
Exactly. That amazing feeling when things do align. Packing can really help someone feel more at home in their own skin. It connects that physical presentation with their internal sense of self.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a tangible thing you can do.
It is. But, and this is super important, not all trans men pack.
Right. Our sources really stress that.
Yeah. Some find it uncomfortable or just not necessary for them.
Mm.
And choosing not to pack, it absolutely doesn't make someone any less trans or any less of a man.
It's a tool, not a requirement.
Precisely. It's totally an individual choice. Okay, so should we talk about the actual types of packers? There's quite a range.
Yeah, let's do that. I was actually surprised by the variety. It's not just one thing.
Not at all. You've got different shapes, sizes, skin tones, different materials,
Hmm.
everything from homemade things to like medical grade prosthetics.
And the price range reflects that too, right? Like $10 up to over 100.
Easily. And yeah, different styles too, like circumcised or uncircumcised options.
Okay, so where's the starting point? Homemade.
That's often the most accessible, yeah. The classic is rolled up socks.
The old standby, how do you keep them in place?
You can use a jock strap or special packing underwear or even just safety pins inside your regular boxers or briefs. It's, a low barrier way to try it out.
But I guess there are downsides.
For sure. Socks might not look or feel very realistic, obviously, and a wad of fabric can get pretty uncomfortable, maybe sweaty after a while.
Yeah, I can see that. So moving up from DIY, what about soft packers? That sounds like a common category.
It is. Soft packers are probably the most common type for just creating that everyday realistic bulge. They're designed to mimic a flaccid, non-erect penis.
So they're floppy.
Pretty much, yeah. They're made from materials like soft skin, sometimes thermal gel, elastomer, and also soft silicone.
And is there a big difference between, say, silicone and the others?
There is, yeah. Silicone tends to be a bit firmer, maybe denser, heavier sometimes.
Okay.
But the big advantage of silicone is hygiene. It's non-porous, so it's way easier to clean. You can even boil sometimes to sterilize them. Great if you have sensitive skin.
Ah, good point. And the other materials? Soft skin, elastomer.
Those tend to be more flexible, maybe
Huh.
feel a bit more squishy or skin-like to the touch.
Mhm.
So depends what you prioritize,
Yeah.
hygiene and durability versus maybe a slightly softer feel.
Gotcha. Okay, next up, SDP packers. Stand to pee. This sounds potentially life-changing for some people.
It really can be.
Mm-hmm.
These packers have a dual purpose. You could pack with them, like a soft packer, but they also have an internal channel or funnel.
To allow urination while standing?
Exactly. So you can use a urinal or just pee standing up. This is often really important for folks who haven't had bottom surgery.
I bet there's a learning curve, though. Trying not to. Huh.
Make a mess. Yeah, absolutely. Using the funnel correctly, angling it right, making sure you have a good seal. It definitely takes practice. You probably want to try it in the shower first.
Good tip.
And related to this, our sources also mention devices like the pee-style. These aren't necessarily packers, but they are plastic funnels designed just for standing to pee.
Oh, interesting. So separate from packing.
Right. They can be really helpful for privacy or safety in men's restrooms. Even if you don't want or need to pack, that sense of security can be huge.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and then there are the 3-in-1 packers: pack, pee, and play.
Yep. These are designed to do all three: everyday packing, standing to pee, and also be used for sexual penetration. They often have an internal rod or structure to allow for that.
Maximum versatility, sounds like.
It does.
Yeah.
But there's a word of caution in the sources here, too.
Oh, what's that?
Generally, using a dildo or even some of these multi-use packers just for everyday packing isn't always the best idea.
Why not?
Well, they might be too firm or shaped in a way that's not comfortable for wearing all day. Plus, they might create a bulge that looks, well, constantly semi-erect, which isn't very realistic for just walking around.
Ah, okay. Good point. Not the look most people are going for day to day.
Probably not, no.
All right, so let's say someone's decided they want to try a packer, maybe not socks. Where do they go? Our sources mention some specific places.
Yeah, TransGuy Supply gets a shout out. It's trans-owned, which is great. And they seem to have a really wide selection.
Like those STPs you mentioned.
Right. They carry ones like the STP, freely different sizes, skin tones, cut or uncut styles, even an option for an insertable rod for play. Plus, other kinds like the #OneTransPacker, Mr. Limpy, stuff from New York Toy Collective.
Wow, lots of options.
Yeah, and they also sell packing underwear, jock straps, harnesses, swim gear, the works.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the reviews on their site are pretty helpful too.
That's always good, hearing from other users. And Air Basics was the other main source, right? They sell them too.
They do. And Herb Basics also gives some really practical tips for actually wearing a packer, which are worth going through.
Okay, yeah, let's get into the practical stuff. First up, size. It's not just bigger is better.
Definitely not. Our Basics really emphasizes finding what feels right for your specific body. Too big or too small just won't feel comfortable or look natural.
So how do you figure that out?
They actually suggest experimenting at home first, maybe using different sizes of rolled up socks, just to get a feel for the volume and how it sits.
Smart, like a trial run.
Exactly. And interestingly, if you happen to be near Toronto, they mention offering in-person fitting appointments.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool if you're local. Okay, next tip. Material allergies.
Super important. If you get redness or itching, you might be allergic to the material, often rubber or latex in cheaper models.
So what's the alternative?
This is where silicone often comes recommended again. It's less likely to cause reactions because it's non-porous. Plus, you get the durability and the easy cleaning like we talked about. Less chance of bacteria building up too.
Hygiene again. Makes sense. Okay, positioning. This sounds crucial for how it looks.
Totally. Where you place the packer really changes the shape and how noticeable the bulge is. Too high, too low, it can look kind of off.
So what are the main ways to position it?
There are generally two schools of thought: packing up and packing down.
Up versus down. Explain.
Okay, packing up usually means letting the packer rest sort of angled upwards, maybe against your hip flexors.
Yeah.
This can make the bulge a bit less obvious. It's often how people position STPs for practical use too.
Okay. And packing down.
That's letting it rest more naturally downwards, above where the scrotum would be. This can actually create a more noticeable bulge, even with a smaller packer, and many find it comfortable for just daily wear.
Interesting. So it's about experimenting to see what feels and looks right for you.
Exactly. And related to that is using specialized underwear or harnesses.
Do they make a big difference?
The sources suggest they really can, yeah. Packing boxers often have built-in pouches, sometimes with clever openings to hold the packer securely.
Keeps it from shifting around.
Right. And harnesses are useful too, especially for maybe heavier or firmer packers or during more active moments or for pack and play. They just provide extra security and support.
Makes sense. Okay, another piece of advice from Basics. Give yourself time to adjust.
Yes, this is key. It might feel a bit weird at first. It's a new sensation.
So don't just slap it on and head out the door.
Probably not the best idea. They recommend wearing it around the house first. Do your usual stuff: sit, walk, Bend over, see how it feels, get comfortable with it in private before you take it public. There's no rush.
Like breaking in new shoes, kind of. Good advice. And they specifically say don't just use a dildo instead, right?
Right. We touched on this, but yeah, it usually just doesn't look natural for everyday packing. The shape, the firmness,
Yeah.
it won't create that realistic soft bulge.
Are there low-cost alternatives if silicone is too pricey but socks aren't cutting it?
Yeah, they mentioned things like the bulge packer. It's apparently a lightweight foam packer designed to be worn in pouch underwear. Could be a good option, especially if you have silicone allergies too.
Good to know. And finally, what about hard packing? Using those pack-and-play devices.
Right. Because those are firmer, maybe heavier, they often need a bit more prep. Definitely good harnesses or specialized underwear to keep them secure and prevent chafing or discomfort.
Okay, that covers wearing them. What about taking care of them? Cleaning seems important.
Absolutely critical for hygiene. First step is knowing your material, because care differs.
So for silicone?
Pretty easy, usually. Fragrance-free soap and warm water daily is good. And like we said, you can often boil them periodically for deep cleaning. Then just let them air dry. Helps keep the color looking good.
Straightforward. What about that other material, cyberskin?
That one's more porous, so it needs a bit more attention. After washing and drying, it's often recommended to dust it lightly with cornstarch.
Cornstarch. Really? Why?
Yeah. It helps stop it from getting sticky, which porous materials sometimes can, and it helps maintain the look and feel. Keeps it feeling kind of new.
Huh. That's a cool tip. Does cornstarch work for other types too?
It can, yeah. Dusting any packer lightly after washing can sometimes help reduce tackiness and just make it more comfortable against the skin.
Nice pro tip. Okay, so pulling this all together, if someone's trying to choose a packer, what should they be thinking about?
Your Basics has a good checklist of questions to ask yourself, like where size feels right for me? Do I have any allergies like to latex? Do I want STP or play functions or just packing? And realistically, what's my budget?
And checking reviews helps too, presumably.
Definitely. Hearing other people's experiences with specific models can be super valuable.
Do they give any specific recommendations just as examples?
They do mention a few. For beginners, they suggest something like the Tantus on the Go Packer Good Silicone. Feels natural, easy to clean. They contrast it with Mr. Limpy, which uses cyberskin and needs more care.
Okay.
For a classic shape, they point to the New York Collective Archer's soft silicone, different tones, even fun colors, but maybe less hyper-realistic.
Right.
If realism is key, the California Exotics Packer gets mentioned for its details, or banana prosthetics for handmade medical-grade silicone ones made in Canada.
Wow, handmade.
Yeah. And then for top-of-the-line multi-function stuff, they highlight the Transstore's 5-in-1 line things like the Mr. Flex or T-Rex Pack and Play that aim to do everything.
That gives a really good sense of the spectrum available. Any final reminders from our basics?
Yeah, just circling back, remember size is personal. Try the sock trick. Give yourself a time to adjust, don't rush it. Consider specialized underwear, especially at first.
And the big picture.
The big picture is that packing can be a really powerful way for trans men and gender nonconforming folks to feel more like themselves, more aligned, more comfortable.
So wrapping up our deep dive today, it's obvious that packers are incredibly personal tools. Huge variety in types, uses, materials, all reflecting individual needs and journeys. And resources like Trans Guy Supply and Our Basics seem like great places to learn more.
Absolutely, and that core message really bears repeating. Packing is a valid choice, but it doesn't define anyone's gender identity. Choosing not to pack is equally valid. It's all about finding what feels right for you. Be patient and kind to yourself in that process.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought for everyone listening. When we understand the different ways people affirm who they are, like through packing, it really does help build a more empathetic world, doesn't it? It makes you wonder what other choices that seem personal on the surface might hold really profound meaning for someone's sense of self. Something to think about.